The city was alive with its usual hustle, but within the stark glass walls of the office, the atmosphere was suffocating. Jennifer's heart raced as the final numbers flashed across her screen, red ink everywhere. She could barely breathe, staring at the numbers that condemned her entire future. How could this happen? She whispered to herself, gripping the edge of the desk as though it would anchor her to reality. Months of hard work had led to this moment. The project that had consumed her every waking hour, every sacrifice made to keep the team on track, had fallen apart in the most brutal way. The decision to partner with a company that promised stability now seemed like a death sentence. As the room seemed to spin, Jennifer tried to stand, but her legs betrayed her. She stumbled backward into the plush chair, breathing in shallow gasps. The silence of the office was deafening, only broken by the soft hum of the air conditioning system. She needed help, but the isolation of her office was the cold reminder of how alone she truly was. A message blinked on her screen, an automated notice, final termination notice. She couldn't escape it. She tried to focus, to think of what to do next, but everything seemed out of her control. Jennifer's breath quickened as she looked at the message blinking on her screen. It was official. The business was no longer viable. She was alone in this, with nothing left to fall back on. A bitter taste rose in her mouth as she leaned back in her chair. Every decision, every long hour, now seemed like a mistake. What had she missed? Was there a way out? The silence was deafening, and the weight of everything was crushing her. All she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat in her ears. The message that confirmed the end of her career kept flashing on the screen, an endless reminder of failure. Her mind raced with desperate thoughts. Was this her fault? Could she have done more? There was no one to blame but herself, no one to console her. She had placed all her faith in this business. And now, it was gone. The weight of failure was heavy, pressing down on her chest, but there was no time for self-pity. Jennifer took a deep breath and pushed herself out of the chair, determined not to let it end like this. She walked to the window, the cold glass pressing against her forehead as she stared out at the city. In the distance, the world moved on, unaware of her personal devastation. She closed her eyes, feeling the cool breeze from the open window brush against her face. "I can't give up," she whispered to herself. But where could she turn now? Her future, once so bright, seemed to have crumbled beyond repair. Every avenue felt closed, every door locked. But there had to be something she could do. Jennifer turned away from the window, her resolve hardening. There were calls to be made, decisions to be made, but the isolation of the office felt suffocating. She walked back to her desk, glancing at the screen one last time. There had to be a way forward. But as the cold reality set in, her options seemed more limited than ever. Would anyone take her calls? Would anyone believe in her vision again? With one last look at the empty office, she grabbed her phone and dialed. It felt futile, but what else could she do? The call went unanswered. Jennifer let the phone drop onto the desk with a soft thud. She was on her own, and there was no one left to turn to. Her mind raced through possible solutions, but nothing felt real. Everything seemed out of reach. She had tried, she had fought, but this moment felt final. As the evening stretched into night, she sat there, lost in thought. Could she rebuild? Or was this the end of her story? Jennifer stood by the window, the faint light of the rising sun spilling through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. Her mind raced, heart pounding. What was left for her now? The business was gone, the connections severed, and the future seemed like a void. Yet, somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, urging her to move forward. It wasn't over. She couldn't let it be. She thought of her team, her loyal team, who had put everything into the project. What would they do now? She thought of the sacrifices she had made, all the late nights, the pressure to deliver. They had all believed in her, and now she had failed them. Her eyes burned with a mixture of regret and determination. She turned from the window, straightening her back. She couldn't let the collapse define her. She had to find a way out, no matter how impossible it seemed. Jennifer walked toward the desk, scanning her surroundings, the familiar office now feeling foreign, as if it had no place for her anymore. There had to be something, some way to rebuild. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her closest friend, Amanda, asking how she was holding up. Jennifer stared at the message for a moment, feeling a wave of emotions rush over her. Amanda had been there from the start, always supportive, always understanding. But what could she say? How could she explain the depths of her failure? Jennifer quickly typed a reply, her fingers trembling. "I'll be okay, just need to figure things out." But the words felt hollow, like a lie. She didn't know what to do. The options seemed few, and none of them felt right. She could reach out to investors, but it felt like too late. The damage was done. She could try to salvage the reputation she had worked so hard to build, but that would mean facing the very people she had failed. Would they believe in her again? She couldn't even believe in herself at this point. There had to be another way. Jennifer sat back in her chair, the soft hum of the office's air conditioning the only sound. She closed her eyes, trying to clear her mind, but the weight of the situation crushed her chest. She thought of the money she had invested, the relationships that had been ruined, the lives that had been affected. She had tried to balance everything, work, relationships, dreams. And now, it felt like it had all collapsed into a pile of rubble. But even as she sat in the quiet of the office, another part of her refused to give in. The fire inside her was still there, just buried beneath the rubble. She thought back to the first day she had launched the business. The excitement, the belief that anything was possible. That was still in her. The dream hadn't disappeared, it was just covered by the harsh reality she faced now. She opened her eyes and stared at the blank whiteboard on the wall. It had been filled with plans, projections, goals. Now, it was a symbol of everything she had lost. But maybe, just maybe, it could be a symbol of everything she could rebuild. Her phone buzzed again, this time an email from a former investor. The subject line read, "Possible partnership opportunity." Jennifer's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the lifeline she had been searching for? She quickly opened the email, her eyes scanning the words. It seemed too good to be true, but she couldn't ignore the glimmer of hope it sparked. Perhaps there was a way to pivot, to build something from the ashes of her failure. The email was vague, offering a meeting to discuss terms. Jennifer felt a rush of excitement and fear, wondering what this could mean. She didn't want to get her hopes up, but it was the first sign of something resembling opportunity in weeks. Without hesitation, she typed a response, her fingers moving quickly over the keys. She would meet with them. There was no time to waste. The meeting was set for the following afternoon. Jennifer barely slept that night, her mind racing with possibilities. Was this truly the opportunity she needed, or was it just another false hope? She couldn't afford to be wrong again. The morning came quickly, and Jennifer found herself standing before the mirror, adjusting her blazer. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of confidence, even if it was fleeting. She knew she couldn't walk into that meeting with doubts hanging over her. She had to be ready, not just for the business side of things, but to prove to herself that she still had what it took. As she grabbed her bag and left the apartment, Jennifer was determined. This wasn't the end. This was just another beginning. The day of the meeting arrived quickly. Jennifer arrived early, standing in front of the sleek modern office building where the meeting would take place. The glass facade reflected her nervous expression. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. But inside, her thoughts were anything but calm. The promise of a partnership was tantalizing, but what if it was just another dead end? What if this was simply a last-minute attempt to capitalize on her failure? She tried to shake the doubt away, reminding herself that she had fought too hard to give up now. Her team had believed in her. Amanda had believed in her. She couldn't let this moment pass by. As the elevator door closed, she felt a sharp pang of fear in her chest. This meeting could either be her redemption or another crushing disappointment. There was no middle ground. She pressed the button for the 15th floor, watching the numbers ascend, her heart hammering in her chest. This was it. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Jennifer stepped into a sleek, minimalist lobby. The stark white walls and polished floors felt cold, almost sterile. She was greeted by a young receptionist, who smiled but didn't seem to notice the weight Jennifer carried. "Mr. Thompson is expecting you. Please have a seat." The receptionist gestured toward a plush chair across the room. Jennifer nodded, but the anxiety in her stomach made it hard to focus on the surroundings. Her mind kept returning to the email, the vague offer, the promise of partnership, but no clear terms. What if they weren't really interested in rebuilding with her? What if it was just a business opportunity for them? Time seemed to slow as Jennifer waited, her fingers tapping nervously on the arm of the chair. She scanned the room, wondering if this was the beginning of something new or the final confirmation of her failure. Jennifer stood as the door to the meeting room opened. Mr. Thompson, a tall, sharply dressed man in his 50s, motioned for her to enter. His handshake was firm but impersonal, a businesslike gesture that left Jennifer feeling detached. The room was sleek, with a long glass table in the center, surrounded by comfortable high-backed chairs. The view from the floor-to-ceiling windows was breathtaking, an expansive view of the city, but it didn't ease the tight knot in Jennifer's stomach. She sat across from Mr. Thompson, who wasted no time getting to the point. "We've reviewed your proposal," he began, his voice steady, calculating. "We're interested in discussing how we can collaborate, but before we proceed, we need to be certain that your business can be salvaged." His words cut through the air, sharp and clear. Jennifer's heart skipped a beat. Salvaged. The word felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Could it be saved? Was she even capable of saving it? As Mr. Thompson continued outlining his terms, Jennifer's mind began to race. He spoke of projections, risks, and returns, but all she could hear was the pounding of her own heartbeat. His words felt distant, as though she was in a fog, unable to grasp the significance of what was being offered. The offer sounded good on paper, but there were so many unknowns. She needed this to work. If she accepted the partnership, she would be under constant scrutiny, not only by him but by everyone who had ever doubted her. There was no room for error. Jennifer cleared her throat, trying to regain her composure. "I need some time to consider this," she said, her voice steady but uncertain. It was a difficult decision, but she had to make sure that the partnership wouldn't be just another mistake. As she stood up to leave, her mind spun with questions. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself? Jennifer left the meeting room with a sense of relief, but also a mounting pressure. She had asked for time, but the decision seemed even harder now. As she walked back through the minimalist lobby, the weight of her thoughts grew heavier. Every decision she made now felt monumental, and every mistake could mean the end of her career. She thought of her team, the people who had believed in her, and the mounting responsibilities she had left behind. Was this the best option? Could she really rebuild her business on the back of this deal, or was she just looking for another crutch? As she stepped into the elevator, her fingers trembled on the buttons, the familiar weight of indecision settling in again. The doors closed, and she stared at her reflection in the mirrored wall, not knowing what the future held, but knowing that she had to choose soon. The following days were a blur for Jennifer. She tried to focus on the details of the deal, but the weight of her doubts kept pulling her back. Just as she was about to give in to the pressure and make a decision, she received an unexpected call from Amanda. "Jen, I found something," Amanda said, her voice tense. "You need to see this." Jennifer felt a chill run down her spine. What could Amanda have possibly found? She had no idea what to expect, but Amanda's tone left her feeling uneasy. As she sat down at her desk, her fingers hovered over the phone screen, waiting for the details. When Amanda sent the link, Jennifer clicked it without hesitation. What she saw nearly took her breath away. It was a financial report from a trusted source, revealing hidden discrepancies within the company Jennifer had been considering partnering with. The numbers didn't add up. There were red flags, large amounts of money funneled through undisclosed accounts, shady investments linked to people in her past. Everything she thought she knew about this partnership came crashing down in that one moment. This wasn't just a business opportunity. It was a trap. Jennifer's heart raced as she reread the report. The more she looked at it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just an error or oversight. Someone had deliberately hidden these transactions, and the implications were far-reaching. She felt a surge of anger, mixed with betrayal. How could they have been so careless? How could she have been so blind? Her thoughts spiraled out of control. But there was no time to waste. She needed to know more. She couldn't confront Mr. Thompson yet. She needed to gather more evidence first. Jennifer quickly composed herself and made a call to her old accountant James, hoping he could dig deeper into the company's financials. "I need you to go through everything," she said, her voice now steely and determined. "There's something off about this deal, and I need to know exactly what we're dealing with." She hung up, her mind whirling with the new information. The stakes had just escalated. This wasn't a simple partnership. She had stumbled into something far darker. Hours passed before James called back. His voice was low and urgent. "Jennifer, I've gone through the accounts. It's worse than we thought. There are hidden assets, illegal transfers, and personal connections between Mr. Thompson and some very questionable figures." Jennifer felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She had suspected something was off, but this was far beyond what she had imagined. The reality of the situation hit her like a freight train. She was about to enter into a partnership with a man who had connections to criminal activity. Her mind raced through the implications. This would ruin her reputation, destroy everything she had worked for. The walls of the office felt like they were closing in as she tried to process the betrayal. But there was no time to dwell. She had to act quickly. The longer she waited, the more dangerous it would become. She couldn't let this go on. Jennifer picked up her phone again, her hands shaking slightly. She had to confront Mr. Thompson. There was no other choice. With the new information burning in her mind, Jennifer stood up, pacing the room. There was no way she could just confront Mr. Thompson and expect a simple explanation. He would deny everything. He would twist the story to make her doubt what she had seen. She needed proof. She needed to expose him. Jennifer sat back down at her desk, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she opened her laptop. She began searching for anything that could help her build a case. As the hours passed, her search turned up more evidence, documents, emails, and transaction logs that confirmed everything James had uncovered. Her mind was racing now, but the cold determination in her chest was like a fire. She had everything she needed to go after Thompson. The only question now was how far she was willing to go to bring him down. With everything in place, Jennifer stood up from her desk. The pieces of the puzzle had come together, and now it was time to make her move. She took one last look at the office around her, this place that had once been filled with hope, now a reminder of everything she was about to lose. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She had come this far, and now she knew the truth. Jennifer grabbed her coat, slid her phone into her pocket, and headed for the door. The game had changed. She wasn't just trying to save her business anymore. She was fighting for her life. The fight wasn't just against Mr. Thompson. It was against everything that had tried to break her. Jennifer entered the high-rise building with a sense of purpose that had eluded her for weeks. The elevator ride felt slower than usual, each floor taking her closer to her confrontation with Mr. Thompson. As she stepped out into the lobby, her mind raced. The meeting she had scheduled with him was supposed to be an opportunity to discuss the terms of the deal. But now it was the moment where everything would either fall apart or be rebuilt. She had spent the past few hours compiling every shred of evidence she could find. The hidden accounts, the fraudulent transactions, the emails that linked Mr. Thompson to figures from her past she had hoped to forget. Her heart beat faster with each step she took towards the conference room. This was no longer about saving her business. This was about facing the man who had tried to manipulate her, about exposing him for what he truly was. She would walk into that room with one mission: to take him down. The door to the conference room opened, and Jennifer entered without hesitation. Mr. Thompson was already seated, his back straight, his expression unreadable as he looked up at her. His confidence seemed unshakable, but Jennifer could see through the facade. She placed a thick folder on the table with a sharp thud, the sound echoing in the silent room. "This is everything," Jennifer said, her voice steady but firm. "This is your life, Thompson. All the lies, the fraud. I've been documenting it all." She slid the folder closer to him. His gaze flickered briefly over the documents, but then he locked eyes with her, his smile never wavering. "You think you can bring me down with this?" he said, his tone smooth and dismissive. But there was a tremor of uncertainty in his eyes that Jennifer didn't miss. She leaned forward, her voice cold. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to end this." Mr. Thompson's smile faltered as Jennifer slid the folder closer. The evidence she presented, bank transactions, emails, and hidden accounts, was irrefutable. His facade cracked, just for a moment, as his hand hesitated over the papers. Jennifer knew she had him. The power shifted in the room as the air became thick with realization. But Thompson wasn't ready to give up without a fight. "You have no idea what you're getting into, Jennifer. You think you can destroy me with a few documents? You're making a mistake," he warned, his tone turning dark. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "You're the one who's made the mistake," she replied. "You underestimated me." The tension was thick, every word weighing heavily on the air. She could see the anger bubbling beneath his composed exterior, but she wasn't intimidated. She had everything she needed to expose him. It was only a matter of time now. The silence between them stretched as Jennifer waited, her gaze unwavering. Thompson stood up, his chair scraping against the floor, his face now tight with rage. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he hissed. "I can destroy you." Jennifer remained calm, her voice cutting through the tension. "You can try, but I'm done being your pawn. I'm not afraid of you anymore." She stood, gathering her papers. The finality in her voice was clear. This was no longer a battle over a business deal. This was about power, control, and exposing the truth. Jennifer had no intention of backing down. As Thompson glared at her, his earlier confidence shattered. Jennifer took one last look at him. "You've been warned." She turned and walked out of the room, her head held high. As Jennifer walked out of the building, she could feel the weight of the decision settle over her. The confrontation had been intense, but it wasn't over. The battle was just beginning. Thompson would fight back, of that she was certain. But she had taken the first step in exposing him. Now she had to stay one step ahead. Jennifer pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders as she stepped into the cool air of the city. She was no longer the woman who had walked into that meeting weeks ago, full of doubt. She was a woman with purpose, with a mission. There was still so much to be done, but for the first time in months, Jennifer felt in control. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting back. And this time she wasn't going to lose. Jennifer walked down the bustling streets, her coat tight around her as she took in the fresh air. The aftermath of her battle with Thompson was still fresh, but the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. The journey wasn't over, but she was no longer alone. Amanda's support gave her strength. The road ahead would be filled with legal battles, but she was determined. The city, once a symbol of everything that had gone wrong, now felt like a place of new beginnings. There was still much to rebuild, but the first steps had been taken. She smiled at the thought. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting back. Back at her apartment, Jennifer sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop screen reflecting on her face. Legal papers and reports sprawled across her desk. Her mind was sharp now, no longer distracted by the fear of failure. She was digging through every piece of evidence, preparing for what was to come. Every new document she uncovered was another brick in the wall she was building against Thompson. She wasn't just rebuilding her business, she was reclaiming her power. Weeks passed and the pressure intensified. Legal meetings, constant media scrutiny, and the looming court dates kept Jennifer on edge. But every obstacle only pushed her forward. She wasn't just fighting for her business anymore, she was fighting for justice. In courtrooms she stood her ground, facing down those who tried to tear her down. Every moment of doubt was replaced by determination. The truth was on her side, and no one could take that from her. The email arrived late in the evening. Jennifer hesitated before opening it, feeling the weight of everything resting on this moment. The words were short but carried the relief she had longed for. The case against Thompson is settled in your favor. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. It was over. She had won. But it wasn't just about the legal victory. It was about reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her future. Standing at her office window, Jennifer gazed out over the city, the sunset painting the skyline in warm hues. The weight of the journey behind her felt like it had lifted, and for the first time in a long while, she felt free. She had fought for herself, for her team, and for what was right. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she knew she was ready. No longer burdened by doubt, she was ready to walk forward on her own terms. Jennifer stood by her apartment window, gazing out at the city below. The weight of everything she had been through felt lighter now. The battles were over, but the future still loomed ahead, filled with possibilities. She wasn't where she once was, lost and broken. But instead, she was stronger, clearer, ready. The city, which once felt daunting, now seemed full of opportunity. She had won, and now it was her time to rebuild. Jennifer's phone buzzed. It was Amanda. "You did it," Amanda said, pride evident in her voice. Jennifer smiled, her heart lighter. "We did it," she replied. It hadn't been just her. Amanda had been there every step of the way. Jennifer had come so far, and now she could see the future ahead of her, one she was ready to embrace. Back at her desk, Jennifer reviewed new contracts with confidence. Her team was returning, and they were rebuilding together. She'd learned from the hardest lessons, and now, every decision felt like one she could handle. Her phone rang, another opportunity knocking. The future was now hers to shape. Standing in front of her office building, Jennifer looked up at its towering structure. The road had been long, but every challenge had led her here. She wasn't the same person who'd walked in months ago. She was stronger and ready to leave her mark on the world. As the city lights twinkled below, Jennifer stood at her window once more. The journey had shaped her, and now, she felt at peace. The road ahead was long, but she was ready. She was unbreakable, and whatever came next, she would face it head on.